What's up, guys? I'm Steven.
And I'm Will. And this is the Post P Chronicles.
So, Will, what do we got today?
We have a great guest for you today, all the way from LA. My man, Askari. What's going on, bro? How you doing, man?
I'm pretty good. How you doing, bro?
Man, hey, we are doing fantastic. Welcome. It's been a long time coming, but we finally got you here.
Yes.
Kicking and screaming.
Yes, y'all.
Man, definitely thank you for being here. So just like we say to all our guests, tell us your story. Where are you from?
So, I'm a transplant to San Diego from LA. When I got out the joint, I paroled down here. I paroled to Long Beach for a second, and then my wife and I, because my wife's from here, we moved down here. But I'm originally from Jersey, man. I'm a Jersey boy.
Was that the Garden State?
That's the Garden State, man. There you go.
Okay, little something. So when did you leave Jersey?
So I came out from Jersey in 82. 1982. I was 12 years old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So actually born and raised in Jersey.
Yeah.
Not just like born and moved, so.
Yeah, I was born and raised, and then I came out here and, woo!
I mean, let's go back to Jersey.
The roller coaster began.
Tell us about Jersey. What was your childhood like in Jersey?
So, Jersey for me, this thing about California, Jersey, right? So, I'm always doing that comparison. So Jersey was a slow time, is where all my family was. I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. I was one of maybe 5 black kids in my whole group, my whole elementary school, from kindergarten to 6th grade. I was probably like one of 5 black kids. So there was that. Having to deal with that, all of those issues. I had a pretty overbearing father, I had to deal with that. I came out here and, when I was 12, and that was like a culture shock. Like literally, if you want to talk about night and day, you talk about the East Coast and the West Coast. Like that's like the culture, the family culture, the whole get out is like night and day. Mm-hmm. And me coming from a small town that was predominantly white to a place where it was predominantly black.
Straight to LA?
Straight to LA.
Okay.
Straight to my set. Yeah, like move like boom. I got knocked down the day I get off the plane. The day I get off the plane, one of my homies, I'm walking to the liquor store with my sister and some friends, and he like, "Where you from, cuz?" And I don't know what I said. I honestly have no idea what I said to him, but whatever I said to him, he just boom, he just dropped me.
Welcome to LA.
Welcome to LA. Like that was like day one. My sister get on him, like slapped him or whatever, and but yeah, that was day one, man. And it was kind of like that, ever since. It was just like starting to understand that culture. Ever since that day, you had to understand the culture I was in, because it was completely different from where I had come from.
So now you said you had an overbearing father, right?
I did.
So what was your home like? Because you moved from Jersey, and it sounded like it wasn't, I don't know, we get into a little bit more about the overbearing, but it didn't sound like it was too bad, The neighborhood was pretty good, and school was surrounded by family and everything like that. Sounds like you had a pretty decent childhood. Correct me if I'm wrong, up until the age of 12 till you moved to LA. So tell us about that. How was your childhood? How was the family?
So I describe my childhood as horrific, honestly.
Wow.
And that's one of the things that's true, is that you can have all of those things, right? Mm-hmm. All of the advantages that other people don't have, and still have, great difficulty in your own life and disadvantages as well. So my father was, like I said, he was overbearing. He was a completely overbearing individual, and that made me crawl into a shell. Mm. And I was honestly afraid of everything and everybody. And, that didn't, do well for me. I was, a smart kid, had an intellect that was probably, a little greater than my peer group. And my father kind of like loved that, taunted that, around. He was, very high profile. He was a bishop in a church. And he had an image that he wanted to portray. So his son, my smart son, and I was reading before, I was reading like by the time I was 3. And so he would parade me around in front of people and, have me read Bible verses and carrying on and all that kind of stuff. But like in the home life, he was really overbearing and, abusive, if I'm being brutally honest. He was a very abusive man with respect to me, not necessarily to my sister, but with me, he was very abusive. And that kind of, and I talk about this oftentimes on my podcast. I talk about how you do that to kids, and there's going to be a time when we stop being afraid. There's going to be a time when we learn how to transform fear into rage. And
because there's a fine balance for those parents out there between discipline and overbearing and controlling, right? I mean, if you break something in the house you're told not to break, you deserve discipline. But just getting beat on all the time, like you said, abusive is not the way you want to raise a child. Yeah. At least raise them to respond the way you want them to respond, right? There's so many other tools you can use.
Absolutely. And if you raise them in fear, what ends up happening is that they have to learn to navigate the world through fear. Mm-hmm. And just so happened for me that I ended up coming to a place in a time, because that was the 1980s when I came, in a time where the way people processed and navigated fear in that world was through rage and violence. And that's what I learned to do. I learned how to be rageful, how to be violent. And I mean, I learned that in YA. It wasn't on the streets. I was still a scary kid when I went to YA. But when I went to YA, it was a gladiator school. It was over with, man. It was 1980. I was 1984 when I went to YA.
So all that did was help you channel your rage, right? Not for something good though.
Yes, it's like it just because it's a rageful place. And it's a perfect expression, right? Rage is a perfect expression for a correctional environment, like a perfect place to express rage. Mm-hmm. It's what it's expected of you, mm-hmm. And then it's how you gain respect. And then when it clicks in you, like there's something that turns on you, clicks in you. And God knows we don't want, if we can figure out how to prevent that from happening, that switch that gets turned on in people. Where rage no longer. So I tell people right now, to this very day, fear will never prevent me from doing something, right? I don't process fear like that anymore. I don't have a normal relationship with fear. People get afraid and they don't do things. Right?
So you were almost as a kid like that caged animal that lashes out in anger because they're fear, and it's like a defense mechanism. Would you say that's correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. Once I learned and I say learned as a learned behavior. Mm-hmm. Once that behavior became normalized in me, that fear is because I was always afraid, and I had to learn how to use it. So when I learned how to use fear, all I did was whenever I got afraid, right, I got violent. Right, to this very day, it is a bad idea to make me afraid. Right, and
defense mechanism.
It's because I kind of, there's a switch. I kind of click on, and I'm like, I get myopic, and I'm like, you're a threat, right? And that's what I'm going to deal with you, and that's how I process fear. If you make me afraid, I'm going to say, okay, you need to be dealt with, not that I need to run away from you, and that's a problem that happens if you abuse children. Because they're going to inevitably go through that process at some point where they're going to start negatively associating fear with some other emotion, and it's going to affect their lives. It may not be rage and it may not be violence, but it will be something.
Well, it's always like the pendulum. You swing it one way too extreme, with discipline and overbearing. The pendulum's going to swing the opposite way super hard. It's like kids that are over controlled, they get a taste of freedom and they just go wild, right?
That
When they go to college, they're just wild animals in college, or they move out of the house, they're just crazy because the pendulum just swings the other way because now they're trying to almost overcorrect or make up for what they didn't get. And so it sounds like that's what was happening with you.
Absolutely. If if I'm just like kneeling down to a nutshell, yeah, that's exactly what happened. I just overcompensated or learned to recompensate if you know how to process this rage. I mean, like this fear, like process fear, because it's still fear. I don't say that I don't get fearful, right? That's not what happens. It's just I don't have a normal relationship with fear anymore.
So, 12 years old, you get punched in the face.
Bam.
Welcome to LA.
Welcome to LA.
How does it progress from there? Because I'm assuming you said one of your homies, so y'all end up being cool.
Yeah.
You did say
well.
So we never ever actually end up being cool, right? Because he probably went to jail with her. I really didn't see him after that. A lot of time. I mean, it was an adult. I mean, I saw him again. But the thing is that this is the 1980s, right? This is 1982 in Los Angeles. And so in 1982 in Los Angeles, gang warfare is just like hitting that crescendo, right? It's like when it's going to get real bad, like when you're going to start seeing, and that's what was happening. So I'm navigating that as a child. I'm navigating LA in the 1980s, and I'm an outsider.
Wasn't that the riots and Rodney King and all that was in the 80s?
That was 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, that was 92. So, but I'm a kid, and I'm an outsider. I don't know this culture. I didn't grow up here, right? So all of it is foreign to me, and I have to figure it out and navigate it. And I'm in one of the most notorious gang neighborhoods in all of Los Angeles, right? So I'm there. That's who's there. So, naturally, like you say, I was like this in my house in Jersey, and now it's like, just go out and make friends.
I assume that you didn't come over here with your dad.
No, just my mom.
Just your mom.
Just my mom.
There was less strict. It wasn't as strict for you when you came out here.
It was like the opposite. Like it was like from that extreme, that pendulum you were talking about. Right? Like it was like the exact opposite of like there was no movement. I almost didn't even leave my house. I had one friend in Jersey, right? I almost didn't leave my house unless I was going to school, right? Yeah. And then I come here, and mom's like, "Okay, go out, go do your thing, go make friends, And the friends that I was making were gangsters, right? Wow. And that was who lived there. I mean, there were other kids on the block who, but even then, I'm sure that you're gang adjacent, right? You're not a gang members. You don't bang, but everybody in the neighborhood knows who you are, and the people you hang with, they are gang members. So even the dudes who weren't banging that was living on my block hung with gang members. So it was an easy leap, Yeah.
So then, how did you leave? Because I believe you said you went to YA in 84?
84, yeah.
And you got there 82.
Yeah.
So that's 2 years. That's really not that much time from 12 to 14. So what was the progression? Like, it seems like pretty quick. So what was the progression? How did you acclimate yourself to this gangster lifestyle?
So, for the gangster lifestyle, I honestly have to say that happened when I was in YA, because I was just like a wannabe kid running around, finding people, but the people I was wanting to be around were gang members, right? Those are the people that I was being the wannabe with, or they were actual gang members. So I was just hanging out with homies, right? So we go on and we're doing different things, and I'm 12, and so I came out in September or October, something like that, and I immediately turned 13 the next year. I go to Audubon, right? I go to Audubon, and that's a school up in junior high school, but it's a blood school, right? And it's a complete blood school, so it's a BPS school. So so it's like I'm in school and
Kind of far from Eight Trey, isn't it?
but then this is the thing about what happens in our neighborhoods, right? Moms and dads want for their children, right? They want them to go where? To the best schools. Right? So one of the things that we used to do, or parents used to do, and probably still do all over the place, is that they would fake an address. Say like, you actually live here at this cousin's house, or this friend's house, or whatever. Like, put that address down, like, and that's where you live. So that's how I was able to go. Because Eight Trey and Audubon are very far away. You would never be able to go to Audubon living where I lived, right? So, but you put down the other address, boom, and okay, so now I'm at Audubon. But now, again, I have no real clue about what's going on, and now I'm wearing the colors of the people that wear the colors in my neighborhood, and I'm saying the things that the people in my neighborhood say, right? So
you haven't even ran into, at this time, had you really ran into any Bloods at this time?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. I mean, I came out here in the summer of '82. In the fall of '82, I go to junior high school. Right? So I'm going to junior high school, and I'm saying them. So the people around me say cuz all the time. And cuz and blood on the East Coast at that time were common things. Like, people saying cuz and blood, and like, it didn't mean anything. Like, it meant you were a cousin, and blood was just like, what's up, bro? Right? That's how it was.
Saying both words in the same sentence.
So I'm I'm not even really understanding the whole dynamic of what cuz and blood means. I do somewhat. I mean, I have some understanding, but so I'm over there and I'm cousin. And this dude hear me cuz somebody or say something, and he go off, and I can't remember exactly what he says, but it ends up with him where you from or whatever, and I just say the thing, right?
That you've been hearing.
That I hear. Now, I'm not from Eight Trey Gangsta, right? I'm like the farthest thing from Eight Trey Gangsta this time, right? But I tell him I'm from Eight Trey Gangsta because that's the dudes that in the neighborhood where I grew up, right? Oh, what I do that for, right? So, it turns into a big old thing, and like, they waiting for me after school and all this. And so my mom come pick me up. My sister, she gets wind of all the things that happened because she was there too. She's like a year and 3 months older than me. She was like, she's there too. And then what ends up happening is, I get kicked out of Audubon, right? Well, I don't know if I get kicked out of Audubon or mom takes me out of Audubon. Either way, after that event, I don't go back to Audubon, right?
And you was there for how many days?
Yeah, that's a short period.
It was really, really, really short. So I maybe 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks.
So then, what do? You're getting taken out of school. You go to a school in your neighborhood.
Now I go to Horseman, which is an Eight Trey Gangsta school, right? Right, shared with 6 O's. So now this is. So this is that's our legacy. That's our problem. That's a problem that the Eight Trey Gangsters have. So Eight Trey Gangsters share their schools with 6 O's, in particular Horseman.
Even the significance of that.
So gang rivalry, as we understand it, like Crip on Crip rivalry, as we understand it, principally started with a war between Eight Trey Gangsters and 6 O's, right? So they used to be very good friends and then became mortal enemies. And at the time I came along, the mortal enemy part had already started, right? So, are
you clueless to this?
And of course, because they're literally people who right to this day are clueless to that. They have no real understanding of the dynamics, the history, or anything that is associated with that kind of that thing. But I was completely clueless. I was just like, okay. And the school that we went to, so Eight Trey Gangsta Hood and 6 O Hood is separated by one street in certain places, right? And Horseman is a dividing line. Literally, the front of the school is in Eight Trey Gangsta Hood, and the back of the school is in 6 O, right? Like, so that's literally the school. Like, if you walked into the front of the school, you'd be walking through Eight Trey Gangsta Hood. But if you walked out the back of that school, you'd be walking into 6 O. Right, so so that was a school that was shared by both people. So I get put there, right, and I get run through the ringer there of gangbanging, get understand how that works, because now I got homies there, and that's where I really started to like gravitate toward Eight Trey Gangsters. In truth, because like that's who I was ditching with, like my homies. Right, we going out and we going out jacking and we doing whatever we doing. In any case, it doesn't take long before you're doing crazy stuff out in the streets before you know, Johnny Law decide, that's not a good look. And I had been getting arrested for different things throughout, over that 2-year period, and then the different robberies and just stuff like going in malls. And then I had a robbery on Sunset. We used to go out Sunset at night and snatch chains and purses and. I got caught. I did that right in front of a police officer one night and snatched a chain and a purse, and I'm running, and then I run right into the police. I'm like 12 or 13.
I got a question.
Sure.
Before we get to more depth with the story, you were a child coming from a lot of structure, a lot of family, but it wasn't. You were always a good kid, right? Whether you had to be or was just in you, you were a good kid, But then you come to LA and you have all of this in you. All these things happen to you. You start getting arrested. You start running with the Eight Trey, all that stuff. But I would imagine at that time you were still a good kid, but you were lost.
You're just trying to fit in?
You was trying maybe fit in. It was dangerous at that time, but what did you need to hear? I always, like this Post P, and I always like credible messengers, right? So what did you need to hear at that time in your life that maybe could have kept you on the good path? Because you was an intelligent young man, you said. No. So what did you need to hear? A kid that's probably going through the same thing, a parent who can't reach their kid, like something. What did you need to hear? Talk to that kid. Talk to that parent.
So I think what I honestly, I don't know if I needed to hear anything. Mm-hmm. I think what I needed was to one, be heard, and for people to demonstrate that I had value, because I felt valueless, right? And I felt hopeless, honestly. I went from, one of the other things is that we were a upper middle class family in New Jersey, right? So I went from that to coming to Los Angeles and South Central. Right? We call it South Los Angeles now, but it was called South Central back then. And I moved into a bungalow, right? Into the half of a duplex, where like there's literally not even a bedroom. There's like one room, the kitchen, and the bathroom. So I moved from like having my own room, having a game room, having like an underground pool, and all the like having the envy. Our pool was the envy of the neighborhood and all that. I went from that to coming and living in a bungalow. But when I was there with all of the stuff, right, I had my father's, foot on me all the time, and I felt valueless then. I come out here and I don't see a future. I'm like, I don't see all the things. At least there you can see a future, because like college is like a foregone conclusion, right? You like knowing like there's going to be a professional trajectory in Jersey was
expected.
I had never questioned it, right? Yeah. I come out here and I'm like, okay,
am I ever gonna live to see?
Right. How is this gonna work? How is this gonna work?
Going to college, right?
Yeah, like how's this gonna work? Because nobody's talking about that. Like families are talking. We don't, and the family structure is very different here, and and granted, I didn't have family here, so it may have been different for me than other people. But I needed to feel valued. That's what I needed. I needed people to actually demonstrate to me that whatever they saw in me was valued, and I didn't get that.
I feel like that's not just children, though. Everyone wants to be seen, heard, validated, valued, right? It's a characteristic trait, and especially in the development of children, you want someone to believe in you, value you, push you along. Like, hey, I see you're better than this. You can do better, right? Yeah. And there's probably nobody in your life to tell you that, and so that's. And it goes to say that conversation was different when you moved. The conversation changed, right? We interviewed Leo last week, and he's like, when my conversation changed, my life changed. These guys started talking positive and business and entrepreneurs. His whole view in prison changed by who he hung out with. Your view, unfortunately, because the conversation changed, was for the negative.
It wasn't that the conversation changed, because people still do that, right?
But I'm saying they weren't talking about college, though, in South Central. Whereas in Jersey they were. Right. So in South Central, it's not even a thought anymore.
Right. It really wasn't. And but the thing is that so parents are still saying, hey, you're so smart, like you see. But I'm talking about the reality of there being systems in place that don't value people who come from certain places.
Got it.
Right. And those systems are real and they're real impactful, right? So not only is there an expectation that you're going to run the streets, the reality is that at that time, even if you didn't run the streets, you were still behind the eight ball, right? If you were a smart kid going to horseman, you were getting a subpar education. I literally was learning stuff in the 7th grade that I had learned in the 3rd grade in New Jersey.
Wow.
I literally come out here and I'm like, so they're wondering why I'm completely uninterested in school, why I'm completely ditching every class that I have. I'm just going to homeroom and I'm out of there. It's because, there's no enrichment. So it wouldn't have mattered, or it doesn't matter. I say if the system is saying we don't value you as a human being, right? No matter who you are, no matter what talent you have, if we don't value systemically, then people are behind the eight ball.
Facts.
And you knew that because you're in another system where you were set up for success.
I had seen what the other system looks like. Well, I seen what white kids get, right? And I just happened to get it by osmosis, right? I was just there, so but I seen what the system has for white, well-to-do and upper middle class kids. I know what was there.
What they get versus what you're getting.
And it's night and day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you already gone. You in YA, 14 years old, you end up in prison. Right? You end up in prison. How do you
I was in college first.
You was in college.
I was at UCLA first.
Oh, you did go to college.
Rewind.
Yeah. Yeah. So
You went to college.
Yeah. So when I was in YA, I got my AA degree from the University of Laverne. So the University of Laverne would send professors in every night, and we would, so that's how I ended up getting my AA degree. And so I transferred to UCLA in 1990 when I left YA. And I was there for a year. I did my junior year at UCLA. And oddly enough, those triggers and those types of things, happen. So we're on summer break, and I'm walking to a liquor store with my roommate, Chris, and some cat, he's from the neighborhood. UCLA is in West LA, and Playboy Gangsters is right there. So we lived in Playboy Gangsterhood, right? A lot of the students lived in that neighborhood because it was really close to UCLA. Jump on a freeway, boom, you're there in like 10 minutes, right? And the housing was cheap. So we're just college students there. And I go to the store, cat pulls up, him and his homie, right? And like, hey, cuz, what's happening? And I'm like, what's up? And I'm with my roommate, and I'm feeling square actually. I'm kind of like feeling square and all this, but I'm recognizing what's happening, right? I'm like, I know, these cats is, bangers. I know that I can see what's going on with them, right? I'm like, okay, cool. I'm play this whole square role, and like they gonna like push off because I'm not the dude they hunting, right? That's so he so his homie is sitting in the passenger seat, like holding his hand in his lap and all this other stuff, and all this. So I'm like, okay. And he like, hey man, homie, let me check out them glasses, right? He said, some cool glasses. I said, oh yeah, man, they cool. Now I already know, like, but I take my glasses off. And I'm like, yeah, and he just drive off, right? And I just like the rage hit over me, right? I grab my pocket, grab my hip, like I'm like, that's a cuz I'm a bust, right? And I don't got no gun, it was like instinctual, like I'm like grabbing for a gun, it's not even there, right? Yeah. But that was summertime, right? And I was so upset by that event, right? I was telling people, and this is like a turning point in my life, honestly. I was telling people at the school, I was telling people like, man, nah, I'm hanging out with y'all too much. That's why that happened, right? I've been hanging out with you squares too much. That's why that happened.
Like they turned you into a victim.
I was kind of trying to make sense of, justify this thing that happened in my life, whatever. But I was like, yeah, it's y'all fault.
You need to find someone to blame.
So I'm like, I'm out. So I started going back to the set, right? And I go. So I ended up going the pen for 4 years, right? So I ended up getting catching a robbery, going to the pen for 4 years, and then I get out, and I'm out like 2.5 months. That's when I go back and do that 27 years, you know, and
so let's, before we go past that,
Sure.
you did 4 years, right? Now, some people, you was an intelligent, had a degree,
It
you was
seems
going
like
to
you changed
UCLA.
your mindset for a second.
Exactly.
You got into UCLA, you had a good streak going.
What happened when you went to prison?
Yeah.
For the 4 years, did you? Don't let me even put words on it. What happened?
so you know, like, so this is what I say, like, we were like, nobody really believes in their heart of heart, right, after adulthood, like that this is a sustainable lifestyle, right? We don't believe that, like, as we're adult, we're in it, and sometimes we stay in it, but we don't believe, like, in our heart of heart, it's a sustainable lifestyle.
Gangbanging.
Yeah, we got, like, referring to the whole street gang banging type lifestyle, like, you know that this doesn't end well. So if you got an opportunity, you're going to try to snatch it. But the reality is, if you're not ready for that opportunity, it doesn't matter, right? If you haven't been prepared for it, it doesn't matter. And that was happening. When I went to UCLA, I wasn't prepared for being a college student who didn't have the emotional problems that I had from my childhood and from 6 years of incarceration in YA. Right, which takes a toll on us.
You was in YA for 6 years?
6 years. So I got out when I was 20. I went when I was 14 and got out when I was 20. You can imagine what would happen. And this is the 1980s, man. I'm talking about, like, this is the time when all the people who everybody knows now, they were kids in YA, becoming who they were, and we were monsters, right? We were trying to be. We were trying to be, you know.
But you still got a degree during that time.
Yes.
You becoming a monster.
Because somebody saw in me, like the thing I was talking about, he saw a value in me, right? It was a teacher named Mr. Thompson, right? Mr. Thomas. He saw some value in me. He's like, you know, he'll sit me down. He say, John, you're smart. You know, you need to harness this. You need to do this. And he pushed me toward the things that started to give me enrichment. So he would give me books, and he would give me different things that would actually give me enrichment, that actually expanded my mind or allowed me to actually use my intellect. So it was something that was like, okay, this feels good. So he was pushing me toward that. So I ended up graduating at 17. I got my high school diploma at 17, and he was like, you need to go to college. Right? So I need to get you to TS immediately. So I went to TS at 17 instead of 18 because, because of two different things. So I had an issue, a disciplinary issue that pushed me out the door quicker. But he was trying to get me to college. He's like, I need to get you in college. And, you know, that's a conversation I would always have since I was knee-high to a duck. Like college, right? So I'm like, okay, now you're taking me back to the place that makes me feels good, you know? So I'm like, oh, in college, yeah. So I ended up getting sent to TS and going to college. Getting my AA from University of Laverne and then, you know, transferring to UCLA. But I wasn't ready. That was the problem, bro. I wasn't ready for change. I wasn't ready when I got out the pen and, you know, did that 4 years in the joint and got out. I wasn't ready. I thought I was because I had decided to square up.
Did that 4 years just bring the monster back out of you? Or were you like...
No, it was so freaking fun. It was like so freaking fun.
4 years? You must have did like level 2 time.
No. I was on level 4.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was on 180 level 4. But so this is, I paroled in 95, right? So we're talking 91 and 95. Now, in the penitentiary in 91 through 95, right, there was an actual shift going on, right? There was like a shift in prison gangs. They were breaking up, like the latter part of them were breaking up, and there was a lot of activity going on. Like, so it was fun because you were out there, you were engaged in the activity, like you was out there actively engaged in the activity. And I'm young, I'm 21 years old, like, you know, and I'm like, oh, let's get it. And I want a name, you know, like the same name I had in YA. I want this name. I want people to hear me and see me, and you know, blah, blah, blah. So I'm out there, you know, I'm active, and it was fun. And I only had 6 year, you know, max, right? So you knew I'm going home and like this, you know. So when I'm around cats with life sentences and you know all that, but I'm just you know going crazy and they love it, you know, and they praising you and oh yeah, that's the homie and he does, you know. So it feels good, you know. And so, but I wasn't ready, so I get out of. I decided intellectually I was going to square up. right? But then I get out, and I had done none of the work to be a successful individual out here. So what I do? I go straight back to what I know.
Robin.
Yeah, I go back to the set. And it was like I use it as an excuse. I have an excuse. Okay, I lost my sister's keys. She had a Beamer. They had the locksmith had to come. It cost her money I didn't have. Oh, I don't owe people nothing. I'm gonna get this money. So I go to the park, meet up with the homies. Like let's get it, man. I need a crew. I find the crew and we go do our thing. Now we out here robbing, and robbing banks and carrying on and credit unions and doing all that stuff, and boom, end up back in the penitentiary with 31 years flat, 31.8 flat.
Yeah. And off of that, you did 27.
27.
So then, when did you decide to change? When were you finally ready? You did 27 years.
So when I was in the county jail, right? I became Muslim in the county jail. That's what happened. So when I went to the county jail, I became Muslim. And that became a very serious, endeavor in my life. So I started to study Islam, seriously, and started to take the faith seriously. So when I get to the penitentiary, right, I'm not gangbanging, right? Now, I'm not even really from the set in any classical way. I am to my homies something different, like a unique kind of thing that kind of happened in prison, right? I wasn't from the set. I wasn't actively banging with the set, but I was always supportive of and in association with my homies, right? But only for the betterment of them. Like I was always trying to figure out ways, how do I make or put you in a position to get better, to have more, do more, use whatever resources I have to do more. So whenever I made money, if an Eight Trey Gangsta was around me, they making money. Right, if I'm doing business, Eight Trey Gangsta around me, I'm gonna show you how to do business, right? So I was always there in association with it, but I was seriously on my Islam too. From the time that I went from the time I was in county jail to the time I was released, I was a Muslim, and I was a very serious Muslim.
So, 27. Am I saying it wrong? 27 years.
Yeah, 27.
It just sounds so unbelievable.
Yeah.
I got to check. Hold up. 27?
1995 to
That's longer than the
2022.
previous period you were alive, 27 years.
Yeah. I've spent more of my life. I used to say, I used to tell people, say from the time, and this is what I was still in. I say from 1984, I have spent 13 months on the streets. And before I got paroled, right, that was true. From 1984, right, from the time 1984, I had spent 13 months on the street, no matter what year, all the way up to 2022, that was true. Yeah.
Bro, that is, how many years? That's almost
38 years.
38
I've spent 38 years of my life locked up.
Wow.
Man.
Yeah.
But now, not only have you freed yourself physically, but you've freed yourself mentally. And when did that happen? Was it when you became a Muslim? Or because you were still...
That's just
making money.
It's a process.
You were making money, but the reason I'm asking is I like to talk about these processes because everybody reaches at a different point. It took me 10 years? 10 years, I did 16. It took me 10 years to be like, you know what? Not only do I want to go home, I never want to come back. I never want to come back. And from that point, I started to go to classes, do certain things, and start to think differently, But up until that point, I just wanted to go home. You know what I mean? Like we all want to go home. Nobody likes being locked up. I wanted to go home, but I wasn't doing any of the work to stay home, right? So at what point did that click? Like I want to go home, but I want to stay home and never come back and keep everyone else I'm run across, all the other kids, from going through the same thing I went through.
That's an interesting question. I mean, honestly, it's a very interesting question because I don't know how to answer that succinctly, other than to say that the process, Islam was a process for me. Like Islam itself was a process.
Right.
But it comes with very real, very strict, and depending on what kind of interpretation you have, set of rules, guidelines. And it doesn't just tell you how to behave, it tells you what to believe, right? And that's the process that you have to actually go through to like find that ground where you are no longer adherent to a behavioral model simply because the rules say you should be, but because you actually believe it, and that you believe it. So, but that was a process, but Islam kind of corrected my behavior, my conduct almost immediately because I was adherent, right? So
you took it seriously.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it wasn't just like
So there were things like, you know, I just wouldn't do because I felt like if I did, I'll go to hell, right? Like, oh, so and until that became a part of who I actually was, as opposed to simply believing because that's what the faith demanded of me.
Right.
It wasn't real. But I can't pinpoint when that happened. I just know that that's the trajectory that everybody has to take if you're truly faithful. You are first adherent because, and you feel like you've changed because I've changed. I don't do these things anymore.
Right.
But you don't really know when that belief has set hold in your heart because it's always been a part of your behavioral conduct as a Muslim.
It just happens.
So coming to Islamic faith is basically what changed you in prison, though, is what you would credit it to, correct? Because those initially following the rules out of obedience led to behavior change, and then with the behavior change and becoming a full-blown seated faith inside of you became a transformation.
Right. Correct? The faith itself, so I'm faithful, so I actually believe that there is a divine element to behavioral change. I believe that God had sent to me, what I call Allah, sent, you know, a thing to me. We call it, in Islam, we call it barakah, like it's a blessing, a divine blessing that Allah gives to you know, his people, like, and it allowed me to make easy my way going forward because I actually believe in the sanctity of Quran and the sanctity of the religion of Islam, and so it allows me to move forward in that and it's very easy for me. It was very, very easy for me to be a Muslim, very easy for me to adhere to the rules because I was a true believer, and that's kind of like the thing. It happens with me all the time. I was a true believer when I was Eight Trey Gangsta. I'm a true believer in all kinds of things that I end up doing. And that was faith. My faith is just another, you know, manifestation of that.
Yeah. So 27 years. Now we're gonna fast forward because you did that 27 years. You changed. You're not the same person. You come out a whole new man to everyone. Not really new to you because you've been that way, right? But everyone who sees you now, they're like, "Hold up, what's going on?" But what are you doing now? Since you've been home, what have you been doing, bro? This is Post P Chronicles.
It's the Post P's.
And you spoke earlier to your podcast. So tell us about that.
Okay, so what I've been doing since I got home is reacclimating myself to this notion of being a man. I heard you say it, or somebody else, so they use the term adulting, right? You know, like that's what we end up having to do. Like, or you was somebody. It was actually on your podcast. Somebody was using that term. I heard him say it. I've heard it before, but I do remember you all saying it. But you know, that's what you're doing. Like you have to figure out how to be a real adult as opposed to the theoretical adult. Yeah. Because theoretically, you know, like, oh yeah, we're adults. I mean, like, we do men things and have men consequences in prison, but the reality is that most of everything we do is taken care of for us by somebody else's system. Somebody else, and it doesn't matter whether it's on the blue side or the green side, somebody else made a system and they decided how things are gonna go, and you're kind of just gonna fall in line. Right, you're not going to be bucking the system. You're not going to be creating new systems. It's probably not going to be happening, right? You're going to be doing whatever you do, no matter how unique it is. It's going to be within those parameters, right? Somebody else's parameters, right? And out here, those parameters like are obliterated. Whatever you used to do in prison doesn't exist, and what you accomplished in prison doesn't matter, right? That's the one thing I'm always impressing upon people, like. You could have been at the top echelon of whatever in prison. You come out here, you're going to start the same way as everybody else, at the bottom of the ladder, and you're going to have to work your way up, right? And it takes time. And that's what I've been doing. I've been building relationships, building rungs and ladders, and building organizational structure and power building, just learning what I need to learn. And it took me some time to be able to get in that place to say, okay, I'm not going to be able to come out and be a superstar like I dreamed and imagined when I was inside. I have to come out and do work, right? I have to build those relationships. So now, like, we have a relationship with the public defender's office where I work. I work at Pillars of the Community. I'm an organizer there. I'm a post-conviction organizer, right? But I came out, I got my paralegal certification, right? So now I'm a certified paralegal. And then I go, and now I work with the public defender's office, helping people get out of jail. Like, I get cases from the public defender's office that will help people do 1170s. But that took time, right? It took time, and it took time for the people in the organization that I work for to be able to see me for who I am, because I am a little different than other folks, and I come off a little differently sometimes, and it's odd and strange, and people don't understand. But when you see, okay, they see who I really am, they say, okay, we trust that you're going to be able to do this work. Right? And then you build those relationships over time. And that's what I've been doing with my podcast. The same thing. I just started my podcast in my, I live in my RV, right? And I just I have an office in my RVs. I have an office space. And I put my camera up there and I started interviewing people in prison, right? The interviews I did, Damian Williams, little football. Just did interviews with people in prison. There were interviews with people who had gotten out of prison, just right there over Zoom or Google Meets, right? And just over time building capacity. So as I start to get my capacity back up, I started buying equipment. So I would buy a camera and buy mics and buy these different things and try to figure them out and see if they worked or didn't work or however, what's going on, buy the lighting, all that type of stuff. And just build that capacity. So what I'm doing now in my own life is, like I said, what I'm doing is building capacity. I'm just trying to figure out how to keep leveling up. And I do that with the work I do every day with Pillars of the Community. We do court watching. We are advocates for people who have been affected by community violence, by police violence, people who are affected by incarceration. So we're just there helping people navigate this system.
Question, what year did you get out?
So I went to MCRP in 2021, September of 2021, and I paroled in April of 22.
Okay, so a couple years out now, doing big things, you're building a foundation. Has it been a hard challenge, a tough challenge, or because you got a good head on your shoulders now and you're focused? Has it been easy, just roll with the punches? How's it been since you've been out? Sounds like you're doing big things.
Super hard.
But is it just, I don't want people out there like, it's just walk in the park for him.
Super hard. So
tell us about that.
Because you have to get out your own way.
Yeah.
Right? That's the thing we don't get. We don't understand. Like, dude, like whatever you think of yourself, whatever you got going on in your own mind, right? Nobody out here believes that about you because you haven't proven it to them. Right, and when you haven't proven it to them, you be like, okay, I'm together, man. I got this thing together. I know what I am. I know where I'm at. And people are like, how do we know?
You got no work experience.
No,
you got a big gap in your resume.
What you want to go tell them, man? Look, this is what I did in prison, man. I ran organizations. Now, I literally ran organizations in prison. I had men under my command in prison. But how do I translate that into a resume?
That on the outside, right?
But it's real life experience. But how do you translate that into a resume unless you go work for an organization like I do, who can value that? It says, okay, well, we value the fact that you actually are a team leader. We know that you can lead a team. So here's some responsibility leading the team out here. Let me see how you do with this.
You still got to prove it.
But you still got to prove it.
Yeah.
You still got to prove it.
Yeah. It's funny that you said that because Steven just told me something like that just a couple of days, and I was like, bro, that was profound. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was profound. Tell them what you said, Steven.
Yeah, one of the things I tell people, like, people are always like, oh, nobody believes in me. And I'm like, why should they? You haven't accomplished anything. The world has this mentality that, like, we should all be put on a pedestal and, yeah, you got this. I believe in you. But, like, kids come to me and they're like, hey, my parents don't believe in me. I want to do a bodybuilding show. And I'm like, why should they? You haven't accomplished anything. Go win something and your parents will be all supportive. I mean, you can't expect someone that's accomplished nothing to just get all the praise and support in the world. I mean, unfortunately, the world we live in, you got to prove it, right? So you can't just come out of prison and be like, I'm entitled to all these things. Like you said, you're starting back at the bottom. Your organization that you work with now sees your value. They've given you some responsibility. You've shined, and now they trust you and giving you more responsibility. You didn't walk in there and say, hey, why don't you guys believe in me? You said, give me an opportunity to earn your trust and belief, right?
And that's what we all have to do.
Yeah, everyone, not just prison.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's I think the thing that we kind of forget too is that everyone has to go through that, right? And we somehow fantasize because you're in prison. What ends up happening is you fantasize your way out of your condition, right? So what we say to ourselves is the reason that I'm here in this station in life and don't have this, that, or the X is because these people locked me up. If they hadn't locked me up, or if I was out there right now and I wasn't locked up, what I know now, I would be able to apply in these beautiful ways, and I will be able to expand. And it is true. To a large degree, that is true. You will be able to. But what you're missing is that step that to do that, you gotta build capacity, and that takes time.
Absolutely.
If you don't build relationships, you're never going to prosper or be successful, right? And building relationships means people have to have time to observe you and understand whether or not you're true or not, because anybody can have a flowery tongue, right? And we've seen people, man, they can talk the talk all over, and then they can deliver nothing.
Exactly.
You know, and when you deliver nothing, people are gonna be like, yeah.
All talk.
Yeah. Because they've seen that
All
before.
talk.
Show me
Seen
something.
that.
Right.
Show me
Yeah,
something.
I mean,
else.
everybody in this world is cunning, charismatic, and talk and BSy, right? I want to see something. You know, me being an employer, me being a business owner myself, you know, I had to work my way up from the bottom too, and I had to get that opportunity. Before I could own a business, I had to get that opportunity to show that I could manage and lead people, and then the opportunity came about. I wasn't just like, man, I should own a gym. People need to believe me. It's going to be successful. Trust me. No.
Nah.
I had to go out and prove myself. Start from the bottom, you know, the cleaning job, the cleaning guy, and then work my way up. It wasn't just like, oh, people see the success now. They didn't see that almost everybody in a successful spot now, for the most part, did have to start from the bottom. So, unfortunately, so do you, right?
Yeah. I talk about, I bring it back to the gang culture, right? Is that cats with these reputations that people know, like people who are super famous on the streets, right? They started somewhere, right? They all started somewhere, and I promise you, none of them started with that reputation. Right? They had to build it, right? You know, they had to build it over time. They had to build that capacity. So why not take our life experiences, the things that we've actually experienced, and translate them into our lives? Like, so wait a minute. If I needed time to build my reputation as a gangster, how would I not need time to build my reputation as a businessman or as a professional in any capacity? How would that be different?
Yeah, it's like the famous personal trainer line. You're like, hey, it took you 10 years to get this overweight. It's going to take you a good amount of years to get it off, right? It's not just nothing's going to happen overnight, right?
Yeah, I don't come to the, hey, trainer, can you get this off of me in 3 weeks? Like, you know,
I'm like,
get out of here.
Wait right there. Don't even worry about it. No, so what is the name of your podcast?
Gangsta. So we're over on YouTube only right now. I still got to figure out how to get on these other platforms. I just don't have the time, honestly. I haven't put out episodes the way I want to or anything like that. I got like 12 episodes out now, but I haven't really been doing what we want to do because I just haven't really been able to find the time to do things the way that I have planned. You know, my partner is in LA, right? I'm here in San Diego, right? We like to be together. So now that we've started to do them in person, we always want to be in person doing them together. So I've had opportunities to interview people, and I declined because my thought process is I want Michael there with me, right? You know, that's our secret sauce. Like, that's us. We gotta want to be
dynamic.
We want to be
Secret
together.
sauce right here.
Right.
Secret sauce.
Right.
We know about the secret sauce.
Right.
A little thing
You know,
too.
so and so I haven't done that, but I do have to figure out like how we can do that because we are in different places, and we do go up and you know, because LA is not that far from here, but you know, we do meet, and we just got to figure that part out. But we're gonna get back on track. We're not. I mean, so we're over 1,000 subscribers, so we got that part. All of our episodes, 1,000 views or more. Except like 2 or 3, they have like 600, 700, something like that. But I mean, we're doing okay. We haven't cracked the bubble yet. We haven't figured out the code just yet, but we're trying. And the thing is, honestly, I don't care what level of success the podcast has. This is a platform for gangsters to be able to sit down, have a conversation, a real conversation about the consequences of taking on this lifestyle, right? So that whatever else happens with people in life, they can't say, Oh, there was nothing out there to say this is where this
Nobody
is.
told
This is where this goes, and these are the real concepts, the behind the scene things that nobody talks about, right? Like lifelong ways that we get triggered, right?
Right.
Because I mean, I'm like I tell people, man, you know, my fear of black men, young black men, is a real fear, not based on some prejudice, not based on some idiotic white supremacy type of thing, but based on my own life experiences. When I was a young black kid, I was dangerous, right? And I was dangerous, most dangerous to other black people, right? And so when I see young black folk, right, in particular circumstances, I get triggered. And intellectually, I say, okay, there's probably absolutely nothing wrong. But there's a feeling that comes on to me. And I can't shake that, right? And there's all kinds of other consequences of my having been a gang member, having spent most of my life incarcerated. You know, there's all kinds of things that still go on in my life because of that. And so, you know, that's what Gangsta Gangsta is about. We want to talk about those things that really affect us.
We're talking about things that people need to hear. You know, that's we talking about. What credible messengers?
Yeah, we need to bring y'all on Gangsta Gangsta.
Man, we will most definitely
come
love
on,
to be on
like we have to bring Michael down, man, and we can like use your studio, like put the Post P's up here, Gangsta Gangsta on the other side, man. Just go on and do the thing, man. Have a collab over at this talk, man. You know,
there you go. That's the man out there.
Right.
We could definitely make that happen. So tell us a little bit more about what you got going on in the future. Tell us a little bit more about what you got going on in the future.
Okay, so one of the beautiful things about my organization, right, Pillars of the Community, is that we have an on-staff full-time lawyer there. And in California being one of the 4 states that allow this, right, you can go to law school without, or you can get your law license without going to law school. It's a little more involved than that, but it's called the Law Office Study Program. So actually called the Law Office Judge Chambers Study Program, but we call it the Law Office Study Program. And the Law Office Study Program is that you either study with a lawyer or a judge for 4 years. You submit a curriculum to the California Bar Association. You get a bar card number for your being a law student, the whole 9. And you go. Like, after the first year, you must take the bar, and then you have 3 years past the bar and all that kind of stuff. The baby bar. Right, and then at the end of your course, you have to take the bar to be admitted to the bar. But I'm a law student now because of my organization. So I'm able to sit and do the thing that I love because I love law. I've been doing law since I was like 15 years old, right? I love it. I mean, I just love the whole back and forth of it, the intellectual, because that's really an intellectual exercise, right? An exercise. There's nothing else. All you're doing is trying to outthink another person's argument or try to figure out a way how to make this law, to decrease it. So it's all kind of chess going on with law. And so I kind of love that process. And so that's what I'm doing. Also, as a part of my work, right? The part of the things that I do, I was fortunate to be hired as a paralegal. So it's a course in the course of my work. So I'm actually getting legal study going on. So I'm a law student and I'm loving it.
So you'll be a lawyer soon.
I hope, inshallah ta'ala, I'll be a lawyer soon.
Is there a certain dream or field of lawyer you want to be or people you want to represent?
Yeah, so I'm criminal defense is where I want to be. But there's also I'm really looking at this post conviction space as well. But criminal defense is we have to come back and talk about this one time, like talk just simply about the criminal justice system,
right?
And
because you want to have an effect on reforming that as well, correct?
Oh my goodness, do we need reform? Like if we just we'd have to have a serious conversation about that one day. Like, but the criminal justice system, it's not broken. People talk about it being broken. It is not broken. It is functioning exactly the way it was intended to function, and that is deplorable. Right?
Like my friend says, we don't have a justice system, we have a legal system. Because you're not going to get justice.
You will never get justice in the United States of America. Well, man, I don't know if any legal system has justice. I've never seen it, so I can't.
We talking about America.
Yeah,
but in
but
America,
justice system is not a good word because there's no justice.
There's
correct?
no justice.
Well, first from me, from Steven, from Post P Chronicles, man, we appreciate you being on here. We appreciate everything that you do, bro. Every single thing that you do. You are a credible messenger. You are a change in the community. You are the change that these kids need to see. So keep doing it. And man, I can't wait to see what happens next. All right,
Appreciate you, bro.
Absolutely.
Right.
definitely.
We appreciate you, man.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Will,
And I'm Steven.
and this is the Post P Chronicles.